Scott Walker singing "If You Go Away" on TV. I love that when people do that. But to put the hand up, that you stop.
If you go away.
No, it's more like, if you go away on the summer day, well. You know that one?
I do know that one, yeah.
Such a great song.
Oh, there's somebody joined in there. Who's that?
Yeah.
Go on, you were singing just then.
I can't sing.
Hello. Welcome to Chinwag. We've not done this for a few months, and when we were chatting about starting it again for the autumn, we really did wonder who would be a good guest, and so this evening I'm speechless. I'm delighted to welcome Anton Newcombe.
Thank you, Chris. Thank all of you for coming. And?
Well, somebody said to me, so what's the line of questioning tonight? And I said, well, there isn't one. There's never a line of questioning.
There you go with that body language.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. See, I noticed that about Dean when he gave his talk, that he was very closed. Even though what he was giving, he was giving his experience and his wisdom of about trying to accomplish. He's got like so much to share and so many ideas, right? He's like. But he was so closed, like his body language was so closed.
I think a lot of that was nerves with Dean, because Dean doesn't typically get on stage like you do. And so this maybe comes more natural to you than it does to him.
Well, you might find this interesting, but I'm not absolutely terrified of performing in front of people. And to me, that's not what I'm there to do. I mean, I enjoy playing music, and it's a beautiful thing to be able to share that, and that people can be a part together in the folk sense, like we're people coming together, and witness that in a jazz sense, like old school, where these guys would be facing each other and going to this place, and you could witness that these guys doing their craft somehow. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, sorry, yeah.
In the sense that if you were taking a tour of like some cheesemakers or something, they're not going to let you interfere with it, or But there's something to be said for these people like James Brown, or these consummate entertainers, even if you don't like their music, or something like Justin Timberlake or whatever it is, But to go into it deeper, I'm willing to even forego my fears just to do what I want to do, in spite of that. And it has nothing to do with anything else, I like to play music.
Mm-hmm. What is it that drives you to do what you do, play music? And
it's not necessarily music. It could be anything. It's baking cupcakes. Yeah, it could be anything. The reason why I love to cook is because it's a science and art simultaneously, and music has a form of mathematics involved, that like a higher truth, this kind of harmony that speaks to me, that I identify with, and I identified it in like Bach when I was a little kid, over other composers, that my mom would listen to. It's just like, oh, this guy understands these rules, and it always follows this thing, and I know which things I like about it. And that's exactly why I hate Frank Zappa. Or something, because he's like all about breaking those rules in this scientific way. He's like, I know so much about music, I'm gonna just destroy it, But
we were talking earlier, but we were talking about childhood, and
yeah,
what formed part of your creativity was turning against.
Well, let's go back to the arts for 1 second, then remind me exactly what you said.
I'll forget.
There's this mystical magic machine in the arts where you can take these bad, there's no such thing as good and bad, but these negative, painful things, and you can express them any way you want. You don't have to spell it out like lipstick and hairspray like The Cure or something and go, oh, this is so depressing or something like that, right? But you could just have that energy. And then you leave it open for people to interpret, and it's this magic machine that can completely walk away from it. So if you're not like, okay, I'm Tori Amos, fuck you, you know, now I've found self-respect since you've walked over me, screw that for a minute, and you just take this energy that you have and you make something, and then other people can make something out of that. It's an amazing thing. And so that, I identify with that. And I identify it in other artists, you know. Like, I know my favorite sculptors. And I know it gets deeper than that, you know. I know that how that leads into insanity and how that expresses itself in the arts, but on a superficial level. That's why I'm into it. It's this magic machine that can take bad stuff and turn it into good stuff if you let it, as the informed and submissive viewer or participant in the arts. You're at a gallery, you just notice a flower or whatever it is, right? The sun comes out, you know, it's been great, you appreciate it or whatever.
What are your earliest recollections of that magical time machine, that thing that creates, it sounds like transcendence or transition?
Well, it is. You know, what sucked me in was just my own imagination. So it wasn't external. It's just my own killing the time. My mom was into the arts. She wove, and she had a potter's wheel and kiln and photography and all that stuff. So I was always sculpting, and I really loved the human form, sculpting stuff and playing with clay. So that kind of really got me into it, you know. And the music, I could just hear it earlier. So they're two separate things that I'm interested in. But later on, I started to think about, you know, what I like and what I didn't like in the arts. And that kind of stuff came later. But in its earliest sense, you know, it's like, it's very selfish when you latch onto it. And then you start appreciating other people's stuff, then it's very generous. You know, when you really start appreciating other people's art, it's very, and how do you appreciate art? It reciprocates back, you create art on its highest form. And that can be in a lot of different ways. So there's an interesting process there, I think. I mean, I don't want to give away all the secrets of the trade. You'll all go out and put me out of business, right? Something.
So what is it that continues to drive you to? What's the creative thing inside of you?
Well, I'm really interested in conceptual art, and because I've chosen that path, and I have to qualify that statement, I'm into the thing that attracts my attention, however it comes to my attention, and totally captures my attention to make me want to interact with it. But then I want to only get to the point where I can break free. I don't want it to obsess me. So it never becomes an albatross in the way that, like, the Stone Roses, they created this record, and it's done to such a degree that they can never do anything better. And it's just stuck there. And I'm more interested in, like, if they would have just walked out and recorded those songs, and everybody would have went, what a fucking great bunch of songs. And then they could have just walked out and done some more. Well, here's some more, and we recorded them better. And right there, it would have been absolutely amazing. But why get a better producer? And it's like, it's the, you know, you see the same thing happen with like Radiohead and these guys or something. So they make such a high quality record, and it's just like every record becomes okay. Now they're moaning with this DJ's beat, you know, and it's just like I'm really interested in just the conceptual thing. Like, oh, here's an idea that I'm not going to finish, and then I'll play a concert live and I'll finish it, and I'll keep striving at doing something, and that way it keeps me interested in it. But another thing is, you know, I never really wanted to be like a pop star guy or famous. I just didn't want to be anybody that I ever knew, or that I met, or that I heard of. I did, and most of all, not my parents. But I didn't want to be like any of my friends or anybody.
Where does that come from?
Because I think, to a certain extent, people disgust me. You know, it's misanthropy. But at the same time, I generally, I want to like people, and I do. But I think growing up, you know, I just can't tell you how many hours, like I was just waiting for something else to happen, and so frustrated that I couldn't make it happen. And when I knew how to like change the world or change myself or do anything, there was I didn't know how to make it happen, you know? And it wasn't really a poverty of ambition. It's like, a good example is, for years I told people like, every single record company in the world wanted to give me a record deal. And they wanted to give me, from our first concert, they wanted to give me like way more than 100,000 quid. And to turn me into the next Nirvana was their idea, or whatever it was at the time. And I was like, no. I don't want to be those guys. Post-punk, I was already that as a teenager. Fuck those guys. I said, give me a recording studio, and I'll make freaky records, and lots of them, and I'll just do my thing. Anton, we need you to focus on one thing, what you do. And I'm like, I've been focusing on one thing, it's the universe, and I got a good handle on where I'm going in it. And so none of those connected. So, you know, Warner Brothers and Sony and all these guys would go, well, you're a fucking nut job. But at one point, consequently, I never got the studio in that way. But at one point, I turned around and I said, I am the producer. And they just gave me the money. So, as much as I wanted. So, in one sentence, see what I'm saying? It's like that was the deal breaker right there. I am the producer. It's my responsibility to have the product, period. Doesn't matter how it's done. So the buck stopped there. So I stopped telling about what I wanted to do and what I could do and what we should be doing, and I just said, this is how it is. But that was only a quick experiment, because as we now know, the music industry is dead as we knew that former model, where they just would come up to some band that everybody loved and say, we want to give you a bunch of money, you crazy drug addict. Freak everybody out and we'll see if it works, and we've got 10 other bands that are exactly like you. We'll give them money too, and we'll see, you know. Let me buy you all 1,000 quid dinners, you know. And I got so sick of that stuff. They were like, I was like, look how fat my lawyer is. You know, just buy me this fucking guitar and a hot dog and we'll do a record. But, you know, give me something I can use. I don't need a $1,000 dinner because you want to go to this record company and Chris Blackwell from Island wants to spend Bob Marley's money on me. You know, it's like, I hate you guys.